Another economic issue, Mr. President, I want to talk for a minute about the good news coming out of my state of Ohio with regard to the tax reform legislation. In just the past few weeks, I've visited 8 separate businesses across the state talking about this issue, asking them, what's been the impact of the tax reform bill? What are you doing with your savings? 3 of these I want to talk about tonight briefly. One is a small auto parts manufacturing business in Zanesville, Ohio. They have 3 auto parts stores. One is a multinational credit card processing company headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio. And one is a premier medical center in Cleveland, Ohio. All very different businesses in different sectors of our economy, but all benefiting from the tax legislation. JKM is the small auto parts company in Zanesville. They're reinstating health care benefits to their employees directly as a result of this tax reform bill. Under the Affordable Care Act, the company's health care costs increased dramatically, like so many other small businesses, double digits every year. They had a 22% increase in their costs in 2016, and the company went to its employees and said, we simply cannot afford to pay for this 22% increase on top of other double-digit increases. We don't know what to do. We're going to have you go out on your own and find health care, including in the exchanges. Now, with the money that JKM Auto Parts is saving as a result of this tax reform, all of their full-time employees are once again able to get health care through the company. And they're very grateful. Having talked to some of the employees who had to go out to the exchanges, others chose to pay the penalty, they're really happy to have their health care back. These kinds of real, tangible benefits are exactly what we intended to accomplish in developing tax reform. But businesses, small and large, are benefiting from these pro-growth changes to the tax code. The second company I want to talk about is a big C corporation, WorldPay, Inc. It's the largest credit card processing company in the world now by volume. About 2,000 employees in Ohio, their headquarters. I recently went to their headquarters to talk about what they were doing. And they announced when I was there cash bonuses of $1,000 up to $2,000 for all their hourly employees, higher wages for their frontline positions, an increased 401k match, greater company investment in employee wellness and recognition programs, and significantly more charitable giving. As WorldPay's executive chair said, tax reform is, and I quote, ensuring Ohio companies like WorldPay can remain competitive and recruit the region's top talent. They merged recently with a foreign company. Thank goodness they stayed in Ohio, but now they're rewarded for that because although they were punished for being a U.S. company before, now with our tax code changes in place, they're actually benefiting from being an American company, where it's more beneficial to make the investment here rather than, in their case, in the United Kingdom. A more competitive business tax code, an international code that encourages investments in this country rather than overseas, and incentives like immediate expensing that's in the tax code now are helping to create jobs in my home state of Ohio. It's helping WorldPay to continue to be an American company and to be strong. It also is helping foreign direct investment in my home state because companies that are not American companies but foreign companies invested in Ohio are more likely to increase that investment rather than investment somewhere else in the world because of the tax reform legislation. Immediate expensing, lower tax rates, this all helps to create good American jobs. The most recent federal jobs report shows strong jobs gain and the fastest wage growth since 2009. And according to a recent National Federation of Independent Businesses survey, that's the NFIB, which represents a lot of small businesses in Ohio, according to the recent survey, 32% of their companies now say that they're going to expand. By the way, that's the highest level in the survey's history. The highest level of optimism also in their survey about the future among these small businesses. A lot of that is from the increased opportunity and the optimism that comes from this tax reform legislation. One website that I saw here in Washington tells us that across the country, more than 400 businesses have now announced bonuses, higher wages, increased benefits, or a combination of these things as a result of the tax reform law. 400 is impressive, but I got to tell you, it's a lot more businesses than that. I've been to small business roundtable discussions, individual businesses over the past several weeks in Ohio, and talked to over 24 individual companies, none of whom are on this list of 400. Because they're not big companies that made a big public announcement, but every single one of them are taking this tax reform and the benefits they're getting from that, and they're reinvesting it into their people, into their workers, into their companies, plant, equipment, technology, making their workers more productive. So 400 is impressive, but I know it's much larger than that. Thousands of businesses are taking advantage of this, and therefore their employees are, and therefore you're seeing this increased optimism. The final example I want to talk about is one that has to do with our communities. I recently visited the University Hospital Rainbow Center for Women and Children in Cleveland, Ohio. Really impressive new facility that they're building. This is a new $26 million medical facility. I learned during this visit that it was the New Markets tax credit that was key to making this project possible. New Markets is a tax incentive to spur economic growth and community redevelopment projects, and it helps to spur private investment, as it did in this case. In this Cleveland case, it spawned significant private investment from foundations, from individuals. This is something that has worked in the cities I represent in Ohio. We fought to preserve the New Markets tax credit in the Senate version of the tax legislation, and the final agreement that became law has the New Markets tax credit made permanent. That's critical for economic development opportunities like this new University Hospital Medical Center I talked about. So these benefits from tax reform are not abstract. They're very real. They're extra money in your paycheck. They're more affordable health care coverage. They're increased investments in emerging communities, and much, much more. As the good news continues to roll in from tax reform, I'll keep traveling Ohio, meeting with businesses, families, and workers to discuss ways tax reform can help them achieve a better economic future. A brighter future is really what our tax reform and tax cut legislation was all about.